Brandon Moreno versus Deiveson Figueiredo 3 takes place this weekend in the co-main event of UFC 270 and Ngannou versus Gane, and I can't wait for this flyweight title bout. The belt is on the line. Brandon Moreno makes his first defense of his 125-pound world championship, and I can't wait for this one. It's a trilogy, of course. Deiveson Figueiredo, the former champion, stepping in, not really on short notice, but this wasn't the bout that was supposed to happen. They were aiming to do Brandon Moreno versus Alexandre Pantoja 2, because of course Pantoja has a win over Brandon Moreno, and that means that they thought he would earn a title shot against Brandon Moreno next. He even called him out cage side at one of his wins, I believe, after beating Brandon Royval. They had a moment sort of after the fight where Alexandre Pantoja was very, very respectfully calling out Brandon Moreno for a shot at the title. But Alexandre Pantoja is injured. He couldn't show up for this date or for a date in December, so Deiveson Figueiredo gets the title shot. They're making the trilogy, of course. The first fight went to a draw. Without the point deduction, Deiveson Figueiredo would have won that fight. I believe that Brandon Moreno won rounds 3 and 4. Deiveson Figueiredo won the first 2 rounds, and then the 5th round is like unanimously, like there's no way you could ever score that round for Brandon Moreno. But interestingly enough, and not a lot of people know this, Brandon Moreno only got a draw in that fight because of being given the 5th round on 2 judges' scorecards, which is absolutely crazy to me, because that was a dead even 5th round, and then Deiveson Figueiredo threw Brandon Moreno on his head and pounded away like 6 or 7 solid ground and pound significant strikes towards the end of that round. No denying that Deiveson Figueiredo won that 5th round, yet the only reason we even have this rematch and trilogy in the first place is because 2 judges scored that 5th round for Brandon Moreno. I mean, absolutely ridiculous, but either way, I'm glad they did it anyway. I think that Brandon Moreno should have been given a draw. That was a justifiable decision. I don't think he should have been given that draw by being given the 5th round, but he should have got a draw. I like to see the rematch, and then the rematch comes around. I'm thinking, well, Deiveson Figueiredo's going to win this rematch. He had a terrible weight cut the first time. He had food poisoning. He turned around 3 weeks between each fight. That's 2 weight cuts within a month, and he's a massive guy for the flyweight division. There's no way he's going to mess this next one up now that he's got time to prepare for Brandon Moreno. But Brandon Moreno went out there and had a great performance against Deiveson Figueiredo. Now, I've heard DC and RC talk about this on their show. By the way, they still have a show. I know the viewership numbers are fucking nosediving completely since Ariel Helwani left, but even still, there's a show with this random guy, RC, who talks about MMA for some reason, and they were talking about how, and even DC said this, Moreno's performance in the rematch was one of the most dominant and impressive performances from a title contender of all time. Now, I do agree, Brandon Moreno choked out Deiveson Figueiredo in the 3rd round, but I don't think this is just going to be an easy win for Brandon Moreno here. I don't think it's that easy to call. I'm not just going to say, Moreno dominates him. It's obvious. I am going to pick Brandon Moreno to win, but I think this is going to be a much more competitive fight than that second fight that they had, because first of all, it was still somewhat competitive, okay? Brandon Moreno won the 1st round. He dropped Figueiredo with a jab, landed a bunch of good shots, ended up on top and sort of controlled the rest of that round, and dominated the 1st round, not to a 10-8 round, but to a 10-9 round. Deiveson Figueiredo won that 2nd round. He landed more significant strikes, he landed more total strikes, and he was on top at one point in that 2nd round as well, landing some little elbows to the body and stuff like that. Then round 3, of course, Brandon Moreno gets another takedown, ends up on top. Deiveson Figueiredo goes for a reversal, tries to get back up to his feet too quickly, and Brandon Moreno pounces on the back and gets a rear naked choke. It was not a dominant win, however, it was a lot easier than people were expecting it to be. Brandon Moreno gets a finish in the 3rd round. Finishes typically don't regularly happen in the flyweight division, so whenever you do see a finish, it's like more crazy than it would be if you saw a finish in the 1st round of like a heavyweight title fight, or imagine if it was like a 3rd round submission in a heavyweight title fight. We wouldn't really be talking about how dominant the victory was and how crazy the victory was, especially if one of them just lost the 2nd round. But Brandon Moreno, I do believe, is going to win. A part of me roots for Deiveson Figueiredo. He's one of my favourite fighters to watch. He was so badass on the come-up when he fought Benavidez twice. But I said this even while Figueiredo was champ. I thought he would beat Brandon Moreno, but I did a top 5 threats to Deiveson Figueiredo, and I put Brandon Moreno right at the top of that list for a reason. If he can survive the onslaught of Figueiredo in these bouts, he is going to have a ton of success as the rounds go on. And even in that 5th round of the first fight that they had, if he didn't break his arm, maybe he wins that 5th round as well. Maybe he just minorly outlands Deiveson Figueiredo, doesn't get dunked on his head in the last minute or so, and actually wins that 5th round. Like Brandon Moreno, he's got better cardio, he's got longer reach, he's got very good fundamentals, and he's just dog tough, and I don't see him getting finished, especially by strikes. Maybe there's a chance in a world that Deiveson Figueiredo can still score that signature guillotine that he has. He's got a very tight guillotine, very powerful guillotine, but I just don't see Moreno shooting in on some lousy takedowns. Moreno's been timing his takedowns very well. I believe he had 2 for 2 in his last fight. Like, no wasted takedown attempts where he's just grinding on Figueiredo against the cage. He's waiting for his perfect moments where they're both trading back and forth to shoot a perfect takedown underneath, and that just doesn't give Deiveson Figueiredo the time to set up a guillotine or even be thinking about a guillotine when he's striking with his opponent, so he's not really ready for it. Tim Elliott shot an obvious takedown, got put right in a guillotine. Alex Perez, when he got guillotined by Deiveson Figueiredo as well, he was like grabbing onto a single leg for about, I want to say 15 to 20 seconds. He was on a single leg of Deiveson, and Deiveson was posturing against the cage. Some say grabbing the cage, a little bit of grabbing, but a lot of it was framing on the cage with an open palm, steadying himself, bouncing on one leg, and then he went for the sort of leg lock attempt, which turned into a guillotine, but that was like a prolonged grappling exchange. What Moreno does so well to avoid those submission attempts of Figueiredo is just shoot out of nowhere, and if it's not going to get the takedown, he doesn't even pursue it whatsoever, but typically it does get the takedown because it's so random and so explosive, and it shocks Figueiredo. He doesn't expect it. He's thinking they're going to trade on the feet, and all of a sudden Moreno's got him on the canvas. Like, I think Moreno's got the perfect style to beat Figueiredo, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as the second time. I think it's going to be a tougher fight. I think Figueiredo's going to win some rounds early on. He might even win the first 2 rounds. Maybe I'll call that happening. I think Figueiredo's going to come out switched on, mean, angry. He's been training with Cejudo. But let me tell you this first. I think Moreno's going to get a finish as this fight goes on into the later rounds. 4 or 5 is what I'm going to call by TKO for Brandon Moreno. For Deiveson Figueiredo, I can see him slowing down in this fight. The reason being, if he was on the feet for 5 rounds, he can keep a decently good pace for 5 rounds, especially in the first fight we saw that. But he had a lot of breaks in that 5-round fight. The groin shot, I believe, brought him about 2 minutes of a breather in the middle of round 3. Which is very beneficial for a guy like Deiveson Figueiredo. He had 2 eye poke situations. One of them wasn't really an eye poke. The other one was an eye poke, and they both got him like a minute each. So he had some real big intervals where he was getting a nice little breather in between some of those rounds. And if that doesn't happen again, 1, I can see him slowing down more on the feet. But 2, the fact that he's been training with Henry Cejudo, I think he's going to grapple a lot more. And I think if he doesn't succeed at that, which I don't believe he will, because Brandon Moreno's got great scrambles, great grappling skills. I mean, I know Figueiredo sort of hurt his arm in the middle of that fight, but you could use it as somewhat of an example. The fact that Deiveson Figueiredo got out-grappled by Jussier Formiga, whereas Brandon Moreno was able to scramble out of those positions and win the scrambles against Jussier Formiga. But, I think Figueiredo's going to wrestle more. He's been training with Henry Cejudo, who trained Zhang Weili for her Rose Namajunas rematch, and in that fight, Zhang Weili had a much heavier grappling game than she did in the first time. It turned her more into a grappler, which would make sense because Henry Cejudo, if he's going to teach you anything, he's going to teach you grappling. He's going to teach you how to use grappling to win because he's an Olympic gold medalist. I don't think Deiveson Figueiredo's going to, get too many pointers on boxing from Henry Cejudo. Sure, he could help him out here and there, but Figueiredo, the striking is his realm. You know what I'm saying? Zhang Weili's not going to get too much Muay Thai tips from Henry Cejudo. He's going to teach them more about the grappling side of the game. Especially that Deiveson Figueiredo got out-grappled in the last fight. I think in his mind, he would look to someone who can assist him in the grappling, who he can get good grappling rounds in with as a flyweight contender and former flyweight world champion. I think he's been drilling grappling techniques with Henry Cejudo in his camp. Same with Zhang Weili. And I think he's going to grapple a lot more. I just don't think it's going to work. And I think he's going to waste a lot of energy going for takedowns whenever he has Moreno against the cage. If he ever has a moment where he can pressure Moreno backwards, I think he might wing an overhand, duck underneath, try and get a double leg. He's a very strong guy. I think he will pick up Moreno a lot of times, dunk him down a lot of times. I can just see Moreno scrambling out of those positions, ending up back on his feet. And I just don't think Figueiredo's going to score enough points in those positions either. I can see him getting tired because of the grappling heavy game, which is why I believe he's training with Henry Cejudo for this fight. And I think that's going to lead to him slowing down later on. Moreno's going to start working the body. He's going to start landing some good shots on the feet. And I think he's going to win this as it goes on into the later rounds. I'll say first 2 rounds for Deiveson Figueiredo. Back and forth on the feet. Both guys landing good shots. I think Figueiredo's going to shoot first at the end of those rounds and get on top towards the end of the first and second round. Then in the third, Moreno's going to start stuffing the takedowns rather than just getting back up from the takedowns, getting the underhooks, landing a knee to the body, landing a shot on the break, landing a couple of good shots on Figueiredo in the third round. They have a bit of a war in the third where Moreno starts to stuff the takedowns at the end of the third round and starts to land really good shots of his own. Maybe he wins the end of the third round and wins the third round because of it. Then rounds 4 and 5, I think we're going to see a complete shift. Figueiredo's going to be good for the early minutes of those rounds, but I think in the last 3 minutes of both of rounds 4 and 5, we're going to see a Moreno really starting to tune up Figueiredo on the feet. And if he can survive that, he can survive that. I still think he'll lose a decision 3 rounds to 2, but maybe a 10-8 round in there as well for Moreno in the later rounds. I don't think he's going to survive it, though. I think Moreno's going to win this one late 4th. He had some success in the late 4th of their first fight that they had. I think he's going to win this one by late 4th round TKO towards like a minute left in the 4th round. Starts tuning up Figueiredo against the cage. Figueiredo tries to scrap and brawl back, but gets clipped with some really good shots. Maybe a head kick lands flush as he's got his hands down by his waist. And then Brandon Moreno just starts pouring it on the ground and gets a TKO finish. I can see that happening. Maybe he like hurts him badly with punches and strikes like it's going to be a TKO. And then Figueiredo gives up the neck and Moreno gets a rear naked choke. I'd say 4th round finish is a good bet to make here to make some money on Moreno. Do I believe he should be a massive favourite? Not really. I think Figueiredo's got a solid chance, but Moreno's got the reach advantage, the youth advantage as well. I mean, he's the younger guy and he's won the previous fights of this trilogy. Deiveson Figueiredo, although he was new on the scene by the time a couple of years ago, he was like the new guy on the block. He's 34 years of age and he's had a lot of fights. He's 20-2. That's not a new guy to the game. Like, he's been around for a while. He's just never really had his shining moment where he can get to the top of the division and be fighting for the belts where everyone recognises him. But he's had a long career. He's had a lot of damage in his career as well. He's had some wars back and forth. He had a war with Pantoja in their fight, I believe, at UFC 240 in Canada. Holloway versus Edgar on the prelims. He fought Pantoja. They had a great scrap back and forth. And Figueiredo got the job done there, but I believe he broke a hand. He got rocked a couple of times. He got tagged by some good shots. I just feel like Deiveson Figueiredo, he's getting older. I think this weight cut's going to be better because he does look a little bit leaner for that division. But I think that's going to take away some of his power, man. Like, I think he needs to be the weight bully. And when that starts not working out, the answer to me is not get a little bit thinner. Maybe do that just to make the weight cut a little bit easier, but if he doesn't have as much of a size advantage, let's not forget Moreno got bigger the second time. He put on a little bit of size, and that meant all the difference on the feet in terms of getting respect from Deiveson Figueiredo. So if Figueiredo's getting a bit smaller, I reckon Brandon Moreno's going to walk him down, have no respect on the feet, land the shots that he needs to, and I just think the aura of invincibility is gone from Deiveson Figueiredo. There was a time where all flyweights must have thought to themselves, oh my god, he's going to KO me. And Moreno even said this about the first fight that they had. He had in his mind, oh my god, this guy's got massive power. I need to respect him massively. And then once he felt the power in those first 2 rounds from Figueiredo and felt it start to slow down a bit and get a little bit less powerful and explosive, that's when he started having success against Deiveson Figueiredo. And he had success from the opening bell on the feet against Figueiredo in the second fight, which means, in my opinion, he kind of just picked up where he left off. No respect. I'm going to put shots on you. You're going to have to worry about my power as well. And when you look back at Figueiredo's fights, he does some really cool stuff with his head movement where he slips out of the way. He goes into like an occasional flow state where he cracks you with a good shot and then he'll go bobbing and weaving and start like phase shifting off to the left and like doing some really good no-look shots and stuff like that. But occasionally, when you put volume on him and you put him in like extended exchanges, he does get hit on the chin quite a bit in his fights. I mean, even in his bout against Joseph Benavidez, he got hit quite a bit. Not the second time. The second time he did get hit quite a bit, but still, that was just too fucking dominant to even say that Benavidez was having any kind of success. But in the first Benavidez fight, look at the significant strikes. Round 1, 31-15 in favour of Joseph Benavidez, 60% of those to the head. You know what I'm saying? Round 2, even where Figueiredo destroyed Benavidez and finished him, 15-10 in favour of Joseph Benavidez. He was landing good boxing combinations, and I think Benavidez was just like an older guy. He was finishable. That's why I picked Figueiredo to beat him. Like, he's a finishable guy. He's been KO'd before in the flyweight division. He's been finished before in the flyweight division. He's been dropped many times in his career. He's had his wars back and forth. And I think he's just a perfect guy for Figueiredo to finish. But if Figueiredo can't finish you, I don't know what he's going to do. Because he's going to make a statement in those early rounds, and that's going to lead to a worse gas tank later on. So I think he's going to go for it against Moreno, rock him a couple of times. Moreno has some like bad moments in the early rounds of this fight, gets his jab going here and there, goes to the body quite a bit, maybe lands a couple of head kicks and stuff like that. Figueiredo lands a couple of spinning back kicks and more elaborate moves, gets takedowns at the end of the round, and people are saying, oh my god, Figueiredo's doing really well. I just don't think he's going to get the control time that he wants from those takedowns to give him a breather, and I think he's going to be constantly working to keep Moreno down, and that's going to make him gas out in the later rounds. Decent fight though, looking forward to it. Not the matchup that we really wanted, but I like it though. It's like the yin and yang of humanity, really. You know, I was watching The Embedded. I believe I even have a comment on episode 2 of The Embedded that's got quite a few likes, where I basically said Deiveson Figueiredo, and then in quotation marks, I like shooting, it's like an addiction to me. And then Brandon Moreno, quotation marks, Piñata! You know, they're completely different people on opposite ends of the spectrum. But Moreno's a savage when he gets in there. And again, 2-inch reach advantage. It's going to be a handy thing, especially when he's sort of across these fights, he's established range control. In the second fight, that was the biggest deal. He established his jab early, got range early, and that led to all the success that he needed in that fight, to where Figueiredo couldn't do too much to him on the feet. You establish success with range, you understand your opponent's range, and on top of that, you already have the reach advantage anyway. So it's not like you've got a reach advantage, but you're going to have to figure out how to establish range. We've seen throughout this trilogy, Moreno went from not having the range early, having the range at the end of the first fight, to having the range immediately into the second fight. I think he's going to do okay early, but Figueiredo's going to be throwing some heat, so I think he's going to get cracked quite a bit. But I still think he's going to establish his jab, land some good combinations, keep Figueiredo honest. I do believe he's going to lose the early rounds due to some heavy grappling game of Deiveson Figueiredo, but again, I'm going 4th round TKO for Brandon Moreno, and if he wins this one, what's next for him? What's next for both of them? I don't see them doing a 4th fight if Deiveson Figueiredo wins. Really don't see that happening. I think that'll hog up the division too much. You've got many other contenders that need their title shot. Askarov, Kara France is happening soon. Stuff like that. So, I don't see them doing a 4th fight. I don't want to see Figueiredo win. I do kind of like him. I think he's a savage. It's a cool little persona that he has. The God of War. But he's 34. It's coming to an end. Moreno's the more developing fighter at 28. You want him to win this one. He's got more of a potential to have like a decent title run under his belt and become a new big name. He's already a bigger name than Deiveson Figueiredo as well. And also I like the fact that he's a more trustworthy weight maker. Like, we're not going to worry about Moreno constantly talking about moving up to bantamweight. I think he still has a lot of unfinished business at flyweight, whereas Figueiredo, he's beat a lot of the top flyweights. Like, he's already beaten Pantoja, so there's less urge for him to rematch Pantoja than Moreno. So I feel like if Moreno wins, we're probably going to see him stay really active and look to turn around in May or April against Alejandro Pantoja, and then get the winner of Kara France versus Askarov towards the end of the year. For Figueiredo, if he wins, I guess flyweight title defenses. Man, I hope Figueiredo doesn't win, really. Moreno's got a lot more fresh matchups, a lot more fights to redeem himself in, and it's a lot more interesting. But, I don't know, if Figueiredo loses, I don't know what's next for him. I would recommend a move up to bantamweight, because there's really no point in him continuing at flyweight if he's lost all of those fights to Brandon Moreno. But at the same time, man, I feel like he won't have success at bantamweight. Now, there's certain opponents that he could do quite good against, but they've all got long reach, and he has trouble with that anyway, and he doesn't have the longest reach for his size. And I feel like the size is one of the main reasons why Figueiredo's so good. So if he moves up to bantamweight, I can see guys like Sterling, Jan, Dillashaw, Aldo, Sandhagen, Font, and Marab really putting it on him and outmassing him and outranging him on the feet if they need to. But if he wants to pick some fun matchups for himself, listen, if Marlon Moraes beats Song Yadong, and snaps back into a win. Figueiredo wants to move up and take on Marlon Moraes in Brazil in May. I could see him maybe going out there and chinning him, so he's got a good chance. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I believe Moreno wins this one by 4th round TKO, but I think it's going to be a closer fight than the second time, and people need to realise that Figueiredo is a savage and a massive threat. Click that button up there. Toodle pip, I'll see you later. Goodbye.